All right, guys. One of your questions on your quiz is going to say, here is a function. Tell me all the stuff, all right? You will probably get a fraction as the vertex, and you're going to have to graph a fraction. I'm just letting you guys know that. But everything will factor nicely. So you'll be able, again, you might get a fraction, but it'll factor nicely. But if I'm looking at this, what's the first thing I'm going to write down for my domain? What is my domain? Negative infinity to positive infinity. Very good. Negative infinity to positive infinity. All right, I know my axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals whatever the x part of my vertex is. Is this a positive or a negative parabola? Positive. How do you know? Because the x squared is positive, so that means it's opening upwards. So what, ladies and gents, is my minimum or maximum? It's a minimum, so you're going to tell me it's a minimum at y equals whatever part of the vertex. And can you tell me your y-intercept? Is at 0, 40. I want your intercepts as ordered pairs. So now let's find the vertex. This is my A term. A is 1, B is 12, and C is 40. So my vertex is x equals negative B over 2A. We find the x part of the vertex, plug that in to find the y. So when I do this, guys, I have negative 12, right? Divided by 2 times 1. So negative 12 divided by 2, negative 6. So the x part of my vertex is negative 6. My axis of symmetry is x equals negative 6. Everybody with me? Now to find, find the y, we're going to plug in. So I have y equals negative 6 squared plus 12 times negative 6 plus 40. Everybody with me? What's negative 6 squared?
36.
Positive 36 minus 72 plus 40. Agreed? Okay, what's 36 minus 72?
36.
What kind of 36?
Negative.
Negative 36 plus 40. So y equals? 4. So the y part of my vertex is at 4. I also know that my minimum value is at y equals what? 4. I also know that my range is what? 4 to infinity. Perfect. So we answered all of those questions. That was fantastic. We answered all those questions. Now we're going to find the x-intercepts. How do you find the x-intercepts? You're going to factor it. We're going to say x squared plus 12x plus 40 equals 0. So what are the factors of 40 that multiply to give me 40 but add to give me 12? Eight and 4? 8 and 5? Will that work? 8 and 5?
Yes.
8 and 5 will give me 12?
13.
That gives me 13. So I have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 8 and 5. Is this going to factor pretty?
No.
No. I will not give you any that don't factor pretty. Don't worry. But how do you find the x-intercepts? You have to factor. Here, I'm not on your quiz. Everything will factor. I promise. I promise. But the process, you guys got the process all right, yes? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Again, let's run through this quickly. What's your domain? Negative infinity to positive infinity. What else can I write down?
It's a minimum.
There's a minimum. How do you know it's a minimum? Because it's positive. So I know I'm going to have a minimum at y equals whatever the y part of the vertex is. What is my y-intercept? 0, 58. Good. And then I know that my AOS is my axis of symmetry. It's x equals whatever the x part of the vertex is. So again, guys, we're going to go through here. I'm going to say A is 1, B is 16, and C is 58. So to find the x part of your vertex, it's negative B over 2A. So I have negative 16 over 2 times 1. So I have negative 8. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals negative 8. My vertex is at -8 something. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, y equals, I'm going to plug in -8. So -8 squared plus 16 times -8 plus 58. What's -8 squared? 64 minus, what's 16 times 8? 128, good. Plus 58. What's 64 minus 128?
64, negative.
Negative 64 plus 58 gives me what? Y equals -6. So my vertex is at -6. So if I were to graph this, guys, from the origin, I'd go left 8, down 6. When you guys are going to graph, what you need to graph tomorrow is your vertex, obviously, and then your X and Y intercepts, and just connect your dots in a nice smooth curve. What is my range here?
-6
Bracket -6 to positive infinity. Good. Do I have a maximum or minimum? We already said. It's a minimum at what? Y equals -6. And then in order to find our intercepts for X, what would we do? We would factor. Does this factor pretty? No. Don't worry about that. I'm here right now. Tomorrow, I promise, everything will factor pretty. Might have to take out a negative. A probably isn't going to be 1, but everything will factor nicely. Questions on the process of this? Yes, sir.
Oh, it's just on the test. Will we have like these listed, or will we have
Yes.
to know?
On the quiz, I have domain align, range align, vertex align. So you guys know exactly what I'm asking you to answer. Yeah, for sure. All right, so we have a question that looks like this, yes? What do they ask me to do here? All the stuff, the end behaviors, what my graph looks like, how many turns, all that good stuff. So, is my function in standard form? Yes. Yes, we're in standard form. So I look and I say, all right, how many turns is this graph going to have?
1.
Well, how'd you get 1? 2 minus 1, the highest exponent minus 1. Good. End behavior, okay? Think about this. It's an even function because 2 is even. What's the end's going to look like? They're both going to be rising. They're going the same direction, and it's positive. So you guys would tell me it's rising left and rising right. We read from left to right, so you give your graph from left to right. How do I find the roots? I'm going to factor. So 5x squared minus 10x minus 5 equals 0. Well, what can I do here? Okay, take out a 5. I'm left with x squared, what? Minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. Can I factor that?
Can you please reset your attendance?
Sure. Are there factors of 1 or -1 that'll multiply to give me -1 but add to give me a -2? Let's change this, guys, to a plus. Let's change this to a plus. Let's just change it to a plus. Then you just leave it like this. Let's change to a plus. It's better for what we need to do right now. All right, so what can I multiply to give me a +1, but add to give me a -2?
-1.
X minus 1, x minus 1. So if you're telling me your roots, your zeros, your solutions, you set each piece equal to 0, correct? Yes? Does 5 ever equal 0? No. So I have x equals 1, and I have x equals 1. I have x equals 1 how many times? Twice. So I have a root of x equals 1. Do I have multiplicity? Yes, you have multiplicity 2 times at x equals 1. On your quiz tomorrow, if you don't write anything, I might even take the lines off. I might even say, look, tell me all this stuff so you guys don't have to worry about writing it on a line. If you write x equals 1 and x equals 1 like this, and then you go, oh, look, I have multiplicity 2 times. I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. And then when you tell me what the action is at the x-axis, what would you guys tell me? What is this graph going to do? Is it going to touch and turn, or is it going to go through x equals 1? It's going to touch and turn. Good. Touch and turn, or bounce, however you want to say it. But again, on your quiz, if you just want to say, then you go, oh, it's going to bounce or touch and turn, that's totally fine too. Yep. Okay, good question. If you have multiplicity an even number of times, like if you have each root just once, it's going to go through, go through, go through. But if you have a root twice, then it's going to bounce. Good question.
What if it had 3 times?
That's an odd number, so it's going to go through.
It's unit of a bounce, but when it's odd, it'll go through.
Correct. All right, let's look at 14. Okay, let's talk about all this stuff. How many times is this function going to turn? 2. How'd you get 2? Okay, the highest exponent, you say 3 minus 1 is 2. What is the end behavior? Is my function in standard form? Yes. Is this an odd function or an even function? Odd. So we think opposite. Odd and opposite. Is it positive or negative? Positive. So it's going to go something like this, similar to a cubic or linear function. We read from left to right. So what is the end behavior on the left-hand side? Falling left. Perfect. And it's rising on the right. Good job. Rising. Right. Very good. Now, roots, solutions, zeros, x-intercepts, they all mean the same thing. These next 3 questions all go together, right? Roots, multiplicity, and what happens at the x-axis, they all go together. So I'm going to say, all right, x cubed minus 4x squared minus 25x plus 100 equals 0. GCF. No, so what should I do? We're going to group, okay? So I can take out an x squared, and I'm left with x minus 4. Agreed? I can take out a negative 25, and I'm left with x minus 4. Well, look at here. What do I have in common now?
X minus 4.
My x minus 4, so I'm going to bring it out in front. Good job. And what am I left with? X squared minus 25 equals 0. Guys, can I factor that a little bit more? Yes, very good. Difference of squares. So x minus 4, x minus 5, and x plus 5. All of these set equal to 0. So now I'm going to answer the next 3 questions. I'm going to say right here that my roots are x equals 4, x equals 5, and x equals negative 5. You guys can leave your answer just like that. You can go, look, you're telling me what my roots or solutions or x-intercepts are. And now I'm going to answer the next question. And I'm going to say, all right, state the multiplicity. Is there multiplicity? No. So I'm going to say no multiplicity. I see each root how many times? 1 time. So then now I can answer, well, what's going to happen at each root? It's going to cross through each x-intercept, all right? Yeah, that is a lot. I want to know that it's going to cross through each x-intercept because you might get, and we'll talk about this in a second, you might get an answer where you hit x equals 1, x equals 2, God bless you, and then x equals 4 twice, right? So it would go through at 2 of the x's, but touch and turn at the other one. I'll show you what I mean by that. Now, guys, if I'm going to graph this, which you guys are going to have to graph, very basic sketch. What are my intercepts? Where does this graph cross the x-axis? Okay, so negative 5, 4, and 5. All right. Is there multiplicity? So what did you tell me is going to happen at each solution? Okay, it's going to cross through. And what is the end behavior? God bless you. What is it? It was falling left. So falling left, rising right. We read left to right, so you're going to draw your graph left to right. I'm going to come through negative 5, go up, come back, go through 4, come back up, go through 5. You guys are showing me there your intercepts you're showing me the end behaviors, and you're showing me the action at the x-axis. Is it crossing through or is it touching and turning? So on the last question of the quiz, this is what I need to see. I'm going to see you guys factoring, and then the rest of it, you're going to tell me by the multiplicity, if it crosses through, that sort of a thing. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just bring something to your attention. Say you solved and you got x equals 2, x equals negative 3, and x equals plus or minus 0, right? We talked about this situation yesterday. When you take the square root of 0 and you get quote unquote plus or minus. And it's going to ask you, I'm going to ask you to state the multiplicity. This is why I'm going to take the lines away, because it's hard for you guys to do this. How would you state the multiplicity here?
0, x equals 0.
You would say multiplicity here, right? How many times? 2 times. Because the action at the x-axis for this is different. It's going to go through which 2 points? It's going to go through
2 and negative 3.
x-axis. It's going to go through the x-axis. And then what's going to happen here? It's going to touch and turn. Or bounce. All right? I need you guys to make sure that you let me know where the multiplicity is and what's going to happen at the x-axis. So if you, this is perfect for you to write it just like this. You're stating where the multiplicity is, if there is any, and then you're telling me what's happening at each root. Does that make sense? You guys are okay with that? Okay, so you're going to have one question where you have to find the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts, however you want to say it, and tell me the multiplicity, tell me the action at the x-axis, and you're going to have to graph it. Are we okay with that? Okay, so now I want to go to this next page, and we're going to do these two. You're going to have a question that gives you an equation like this, and it says find the vertex. It might say find the vertex and put your equation in vertex form. All right? It might say find the vertex and then you got to factor and graph and all that stuff. The reason I chose this example is because it's not pretty, and that's okay. If I'm going to find the vertex, it's x equals negative b over 2a, correct? Yes? So a is negative 2, b is 5, and c is 1. So I have negative 5 over negative 2 times 2. Agreed? Okay, so I have negative 5 over negative 4 gives me 5 over 4. All right, okay. Is that a problem? No, x equals 5 over 4 is not a problem. That's the x part of your vertex. All right, and now what do you have to do with 5/4? You have to put it into your equation. I know. The likelihood of this happening tomorrow, guys, is very high.
What?
Yes. It's very high that you will have to work with a fraction. It's very high that you are going to have to work with a fraction, but we are in pre-calc honors, so we don't shy away from fractions. We're going to think for a second here. All right, I'm going to distribute this too. I have negative 2 times, what's 5 squared? 25 over 16, right? Plus 5 times 5 is 25 over 4, plus 1. Everybody all right? Okay, so I'm going to simplify here. This becomes negative 8. Agreed? Okay, so negative 25 over 8 plus 25 over 4 plus 1. Can I add and subtract fractions if I do not have a common denominator? No. So I'm going to change everything to eighths. Negative 25 over 8 stays. If I change 4 to 8, what am I multiplying by? 2. So I have to multiply the bottom by 2 and multiply the top by 2. So I have 50 over 8. And then I'm changing the whole number 1 to eighths. What does it become? 8 over 8. All right. I had full confidence that everyone in here was going to be able to handle that. Now we have negative 25 plus 50 is 25 plus 8 is what? Plus 8. 33 over 8. All right. So your vertex, guys, is gross. So who cares? It's 5/4 and 33 over 8. Now, from this information and your equation, here's my vertex. What is the axis of symmetry? 5/4. X equals 5/4. Is there a maximum or a minimum to this graph? There's a maximum because it's negative. Where's your maximum value? 33 over 8. Okay. What's your range going to be? No.
Infinity.
Negative infinity to 33 over 8. Just because it's not a whole number doesn't mean that anything changes. The same concept. If you guys had to graph 5/4 and 33 over 8, all right? Don't tell me you can't figure that out on a graph. Where is 5/4? It's in between 1 and 2. Okay, good. Where is 33 over 8? You guys are like, I don't know. What's 8? It's between 4 and 5. So you go over in between 1 and 2, and you go up in between 4 and 5. You put your point. I need a ballpark. All right? If you're in between 1 and 2, I'm okay with that. If you tell me that 5/4 is at 6 on the x-axis, we got a problem. You laugh. It might happen. I'm just saying. You guys need to be on top of that. Make sure you see that. So will you probably have a fraction tomorrow? Yes. Yeah. But we're not going to freak out. We are not going to freak out. Fractions are okay. And I promise you, your problems will factor in both the end behavior question and where you have to graph. It may not be beautiful, but it will factor, I promise. So let's go through this real quick. A is 3, B is 1, C is -7. Okay, so tell me all about this parabola. Does it open up or down? It opens up. Good. What's my domain? Negative infinity, positive infinity. So if it opens up, am I going to have a minimum or a maximum? A minimum. Fantastic, guys. What is the y-intercept? At 0, -7. Okay, let's find the vertex. X equals negative b over 2a. So I have -1 over 2 times 3. Oh, -1/6. What a beautiful fraction. -1/6. So my vertex is at -1/6, comma. How do I figure that out? Plug it in. 3 times -1/6 squared plus -1/6 minus 7. What do we do first? Hold on. We can't just simplify. We got to distribute that too. So a negative times a negative is a. So I have 1 over 36, right? Minus 1/6 minus 7. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 36 how many times? 12. So I have 1 over 12 minus 1 over 6 minus 7 over 1. Put it over 1 if you need to. What happens here? Everything got to be 12. I like it. Everything got to be 12. So if I'm going to make this 6 into 12ths. I multiplied by 2. So then I multiply the top by 2. If I make 1 into a 12, that means I multiply by 12. What's 7 times 12? 84. Good. So I have 1 minus 2 is -1 minus 84. Negative 85 over 12. What? Fantastic.
Do you need a simplifier?
Negative 85 over 12. Yes, if you can simplify, please do. So big deal, guys. What's my axis of symmetry? No. What's my axis of symmetry? X equals negative 1/6. What is my maximum or minimum point?
7 over 112. Negative.
Y equals
Y equals negative.
negative. You want to say 7 and 112? Fine. If you want to keep it as negative 85 over 12, fine. If I were to graph this, where is negative 1/6 on the x-axis? In between what? 0 and 1. Where is negative 85 twelfths?
7 and 8.
In between negative 7 and 8. Perfect. See, you guys can do this. No problem. So you're going to have a question like that. You're going to have a question that gives you an equation and says write it in vertex form, which means you got to find the vertex. That one will be pretty. I won't give you something like this. And then you're going to have one, remember, that you're given a point like 3, 7 and a vertex of, I don't know, negative 4, 8. Hold on. And you're going to have to write it in vertex form. So when I do this, what's the first thing I need to write down? The formula. Perfect. What was your question, sweetie?
Okay. Which one is X? Which one is H and which one is K?
Okay, perfect. Good question. Which one's H? Which one is K? The first one is H. The second one is K of your vertex. The other point's just going to be the random X and Y that they want you to use. So now I'm going to plug in and I'm going to say, all right, 7 equals A times 3 minus negative 4 squared plus 8. You guys with me? How do we work? From the inside out. Great. So 7 squared plus 8, right? So 7 equals 49A plus 8. Now what? Minus 8 from both sides. Negative 1 equals 49A. Last thing. Divide by 49. So my A equals negative 1 over 49. Now you have all the information you need to write your equation in vertex form. You would write f of x equals negative 1 over 49, right? Times what? X plus 4 squared plus 8. Why did we say plus 4? Because it's minus the negative. It's plus. Good. All right, you guys are extremely prepared for this quiz. I went over yesterday the different questions that were going to be on it. I went over that the day before. We just went over it again. So come in tomorrow, ready to go. Yes? We good? Okay.